Okay, 39. We're going to try to get this thing done. 40. So this video and the next video, and then maybe, but I highly doubt it. They'll probably be very long videos, but who cares? Who cares? Let's see what we can do. I'm sure we can do this. 1, 2, 3, 4. I've been averaging about 4 pages. 5. Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah. So chapter 10 is 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, we got 8 pages left. Oh, we only have 8 pages left. Okay, we can totally do this. Continuing. The researchers concluded that headache relief was therefore not at all in the mind, but could be aided by the belief in the power of the product. Was therefore not all in the mind, but could be aided by belief. Well, that makes it in the mind. What? Okay, try it again. Either because that product had been tried before, or because someone else made a claim for it. Belief in the product is therefore not all in the mind, but could be aided by. Okay. Some advertisers use the home trial to capitalize on the psychological effects of commitment. The action of counting out a coupon, filling it in, and remembering to post it may predispose one to feel favorably toward a product in order to justify one's investment of energy so far. What do we call that one? It's called the sunken cost fallacy. Or cognitive dissonance because of, in context to this book. Similarly, encouraging shoppers to participate in product trials in supermarkets may work to make them feel favorably disposed toward the product in question. As we saw in Chapter 6, role-playing of any kind strengthens identification with the role, even if it is one to which the actor is normally opposed. In the 1950s, there was an outcry over subliminal advertising. She's a conspiracy theorist. When it was discovered that messages or pictures one couldn't quite see were being slipped into advertisements, posters, and films. The messages were designed to predispose the viewer to buy a certain product without realizing that his urge to do so was anything other than self-willed. Although it had remained highly dubious whether such techniques were effective, the practice was banned in Britain and some American states. Much quoted, to fan the fear of such insidious attack on autonomy, was the Norman Dixon finding in 1955 that when he presented to subjects words that were just below the threshold at what they were registered consciously, and then asked them to say the first word that came to their heads, they chose the words that had some meaningful connection with the word they had just seen subliminally. R. Young? Well, who's that? Showed that, in sleep, the mind responded measurably by special instruments to faint but significant sounds, such as the whispering of an individual's name. The individual would not wake, or if he did, he wouldn't have registered why. This showed that some part of the brain was able to respond to low-key stimuli, presumably in the case of stimuli signified, particularly in case the stimuli signified a potential threat, whilst the person remained unaware that anything had occurred and had been registered. So we do have an awareness while we're sleeping. Probably just that survival instinct. Okay, While such findings proved that subliminal advertising might be effective and therefore was unethical, more recent findings of a similar ilk have allowed advertisers to capitalize on the fruits of research without resorting to anything overtly controversial. Discoveries about the differing roles of the left and right hemispheres of the brain have shown that the left brain is the conscious, logical side, while the right brain is more concerned with intuitive, creative thought. The left brain, being dominant in Western society, emphasis being placed on intellectual skills, tends to drown out the right brain, which only achieves dominance when the other is switched off, as during sleep or relaxation or meditation, which I disagree with their meditation business. Sometimes meditation could be a synergy of the left and right brains. Advertisers don't mind if television viewers watching a film mentally switch off when the adverts come on and talk to each other or pick up a newspaper or go get a snack or go to the bathroom. The right brain is still watching, because you have to know when your damn show is coming back on, you know? It is perhaps interesting that subliminal advertising created the uproar that it did. It was patently not fair play. And yet, in advertising generally, it is not the overt message that is important. It is the hidden message that stirs up largely unconscious guilt or insecurity, which can be relieved by purchasing the product. Institutions. A new pro. Yay. A total institution was defined by Irving Goffman in Asylums as a place of residence and work where a large number of like-situated individuals, cut off from the wider society for an acceptable period of time, together lead an enclosed, formally administered round of life. Because inmates of such institutions, such as nunneries, prisons, mental hospitals, army, have limited contact with the world outside, and therefore no reference points outside of the institution, their supervisors can control not only their actions, but the stimuli they receive and the way they respond to their environment. And boarding schools is one of them. The institution can shape behavior by rewarding approved traits and discouraging others. Brown asks in Techniques of Persuasion whether the bad guys have devised any method which is half as efficient in brainwashing, or with results that are half as prominent as the English public school. I wonder if the bad guys ever did it as good as we do in our boarding school, man. Do they really? They should take a class from us. We know all about it. Well, I mean, when they came marching down and took me to the bloody camp, you know what I said? They said, "All you got?" That's what I said. Well, you know why they didn't take over England? I'll tell you why. We went to school. I mouthed off with the headmaster. I don't think I'd survive that, but I did. I did. What you got, Hitler? What have you got? What? Bloody starvation? Oh, Stalin, you blew. Yeah. Okay, stop. I have to finish. Right. Public schools whose pupils were traditionally drawn from the sons of the moneyed classes do much to further the socialization effects that Talk had described, whereby early experience and indoctrination is reinforced when individual proceeds to mingle with others who share a similar upbringing. Corrective institutions, however, can go further, in the name of therapy. An American program designed to reform juvenile delinquents was described by Packard in The People Shapers. Youths who embarked upon what was called a seed program were isolated from their friends and families and lived as a group, where they were stripped of their old identities and given a lowly position in a very organized hierarchical structure. Yeah, most of these damn schools are known to be abusive. The seedling could only advance up in the hierarchy by learning to think right, in the reformers' terms. Older seedlings in the program subjected the new seedling to intense peer pressure to conform, and watched him to make sure he didn't backslide. Seedlings who could inform on a renegade were suitably rewarded. One seedling was quoted as saying that an older seedling even came with him whenever he went into the bathroom. The program was so criticized because of its effects that it became the subject of a U.S. Senate hearing. One school counselor testified that when seedlings returned to their old schools, they were certainly reformed, but they also seemed to be like zombies and refused to associate with any children who had not been seedlings. She said, seedlings seem to have had an informing system on each other and on others that was similar to use in bad times Germany. Or in McCarthyism. Or in cancel culture. They run in to use the telephone daily to report against each other to the seed. The program was discontinued. Like all such programs, it should be discontinued. I watched the after-school TV special made back in my day. Well, actually back in the mid-90s, so back in y'all's day more than my day. And it's called The Wave. And it's about a teacher who created a special club, special identification club in his classroom, and it started very slowly, very slowly from wear this color shirt or do this activity, like right. The first thing was to rise out of their seat and pay respect when the teacher came in the room. And then it escalated to wearing the same clothes, then they had the same speech, then they got violent. What really happened was after the teacher, because he only did it as an experiment to teach the kids how these things happen, but the movie says that it happened. And it happened, and when they disbanded the group, and everyone ugh, one kid was totally convinced. And he continued it, and I think he did bad things, I'm not sure. In 1961, the American Federal Bureau of Prisons held a conference for associate wardens to speak to prisoners on behavior change and reforms were invited. One was Edgar Sheen, who spoke on the thought reform techniques used in Some Bad Place. Sheen said that he thought the tactics themselves were legitimate, it was the ends that were suspect in the bad guy's case. Later he changed his stand and said that were he to give his talk again, he would advise against the use of such tactics in prisons as a means of reform. Whether the information he provided in his talk had any bearing or not, a program very similar to thought reform was instituted in the Marion Penitentiary in Illinois. A petition submitted in complaint to the United Nations Economic and Social Council in 1972 listed all the similarities, such as segregation of prison leaders, the encouraging of prisoners to spy on prisoner, tricked statements, undermining of emotional supports, placing prisoners in ambiguous situations to create confusion, the use of humiliations and insults, the rewarding of submission, and the fostering of the illusion amongst the isolated prisoners that each one had been abandoned by his social peer group. Both programs were carried out in the name of therapy and in the belief that the values and standards being imposed on the victims were those of the right-minded individuals should hold. Always for the good, isn't it? Well, maybe we should try a better way, huh, folks? Sometimes the ambience of an institution can influence behavior in unsuspected and unattended ways. John McVicker, in his autobiography, written while on the run from prison, claimed that the prison system could not hope to be reformative because, in effect, it served to romanticize the hardened con. young prisoners who were most likely to identify with the tough long-termers than with the prison wardens. So the spurious image of the glamorous macho life of the hardened criminal was perpetuated rather than dissipated. Life in prisons and long stay wards in mental hospitals can lead to institutionalization, as it is now called. Years on end spent in the same environment without any real stimulation can reduce a person to a vegetable. This is exactly what was recognized to have happened to mental patients in the 50s, a discovery which led to a new approach to psychiatric care. Patients used to sit all day on drab wards with nothing to do. They had no need to take any responsibility for themselves, as all meals were provided, beds made, and no living had to be earned. The patients became utterly dependent and incapable of initiating any action for themselves. In mental hospitals today, patients are encouraged to take responsibility for themselves and to participate in occupational therapy of various kinds, but in some hospitals, particularly the mentally handicapped hospitals, overcrowding and poor staff levels will still work to deny patients the attention they need as human beings. Often, the result is the development of disruptive behavior patterns purely as an attention-getting means. As Hinkle pointed out, in the context of prisoners under interrogation, lack of stimulation endured during confinements can adversely affect the brain and speed its deterioration. We are shocked to read, for instance, of a brilliant scientist who for a long time has been held the captive of hostile government and returns to the world a broken man, incapable of carrying on his work. Yet, in the old people's homes everywhere, people are being precipitated into senility because they are too starved of the stimulus of a changing environment. They may look at the bright curtains instead of the cell walls every day, but the effects are largely the same. In such ways, institutions can manipulate as well-intentioned ignorance rather than malicious design. Institutions and organizations of all kinds, by their very nature, need to establish rules, hierarchies, and permitted modes of behavior in order to fit all of their members into their framework. Whereas an institution may be created initially to meet the needs of a certain group, eventually the needs of the institution itself overtake those it was designed to meet. Thus various trades unions become vast unwieldy beasts, with decisions taken at general and national, regional and national levels, far removed from their members. In 1981, election for a deputy leader of the Labour Party in Britain revealed that the larger trade unions were so out of touch with their shop floor members that they lacked even the machinery to consult them. Institutions teach conformity and obedience to authority, using ascent up the hierarchy as the accepted and conventional reward. Innovations within firms such as worker directors or power sharing are doomed to failure if the old conditioning is not replaced by new training. Ensuing chaos is seen as proof that a new system can't work, instead of being seen as evidence that social attitudes need to be changed before the system is altered. Institutions that one elects to join, such as church organizations or commercial corporations, may instill some conformity to social norms that any corrective institution can achieve. For the individual effectively exercises the choice to join, and therefore the choice to conform. The amorphous, ambiguous they who control things were once boys at the bottom. I'm going to stop here because we're going to power through the last chapter in great celebration of the end of the book. We have been educated.